Audible, right?
Yes, you are.
Good evening, all of you, and welcome to yet another session of IAK Talks. Today, we have come up with a new topic to clarify several queries and concerns of our parents, mainly about their engineering education. As you all know, this COVID pandemic is gripping all of us, our plans, and that of our kids' education. Many have concerns about the higher educations, higher studies, mainly the engineering education for their kids. Today we have with us two experts who can guide us about the engineering education post-COVID. We have with us Dr. Niranjan Chiplankar. He is the principal of NMAM Institute of Technology, NITE, Bangalore. He was heading the computer science department at NMAM Institute of NITE and currently is the principal. He had published a textbook and another academic book to his credit. He has received several awards, including Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan Award for the Best Engineering College Principal in 2014. He also presented more than 50 papers on various national and international conferences. He is also an examiner for UPSC New Delhi. On behalf of IndiansInquiry.com, I welcome Dr. Niranjan Chiplankar to this session.
Thank you.
We also have Professor Shalini Sharma. She is the head of Department of Counseling, Welfare, Training and Placement at NMAM Institute of Technology, NITE. She is a mental health professional. She had worked with NIMHANS Bangalore and was named as a human dynamo for the way she energized the workforce to work in harmony at L&T Bangalore. At NMAM Institute of Technology, she designs training programs that would minimize problems on campus and maximize leadership among students. She is an invited speaker at several workshops and seminars across the country. On behalf of IndiansInquiry.com, I also welcome Professor Shalini Sharma to this session.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sunoj.
Dr. Chiplankar, as we all know, the COVID-19 is an unexpected and it had shattered all the plans of many parents, especially about the higher education. The education itself is now turning to an online event, online activity, as many institutions are started with online education, online classes. At the same time, there are something which we cannot carry out on online, like practical, group engagement. All these things are missing in the academic. Now, what will be the future of engineering education? Dr. Niranjan, can you throw some light on the current scenario and that of the post-COVID scenario?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Sunoj. Good evening. First of all, I wish all the viewers very good health. And before I answer your specific question about online classes, practicals, project works, I wish to state that there is no substitute for face-to-face regular classroom teaching. Having said that, online education in the current scenario, it has been propagated in a big way because students are not in a position to attend the classes. Online training is normally taken by the working professionals who during their free time will be able to study something extra at their own pace. Even in industries, we see that IT industry especially, whenever new projects are given to their employees, they have to learn something new for which they go for online learning instead of grouping together at some point at one point. So
yes,
is the case in the current scenario with the college and school education too. that online classes are being held. But you asked a very relevant question about practical training. We all know that engineering is based on the basis of mathematics and physics, and practical training becomes very important part of the engineering education. Even though we will not be able to give very effective practical training through online, people have come out with different models. One of them being virtual labs, where students sitting at their workspace, maybe in front of a laptop or a computer, can connect to remote equipment through the internet and take the readings of the experiments. Even we know there are simulation experiments wherein the simulation experiments loaded on cloud can be downloaded and practically they can learn something. When it comes to programming, in fact, it is far more easier because students can access the software which they want to work on, which may reside on their computer or available on the cloud, and they can execute the programs. Even the teachers or the supervisors can remotely take the control of the screen of the student and they can monitor how they are performing. So these are various options. But again, having said all that, I don't think for practical training, all sort of engineering practicals can be executed. For example, if a mechanical engineer has to see how the internals of a automobile engine, he must get that feel of opening that engine and then looking inside it, which definitely through an online practical training, it may not be possible. You also talked about project work. Yes, project-based learning is a very important component these days. And this project-based learning happens through group projects. So intention of this project-based learning is not only to learn something on technical front, but also to learn how to work in a group environment, how to lead, how to manage the time when several people work together, and how to convince others in a group about your ideas. So these are all the things which may become difficult if you make students to participate in a project through online. But I believe co-creation of something on online presence will be possible in the days to come, because every time there are any new situations, we always try to find out a new solution which come up because of that particular situation. So in this COVID pandemic, when students are not allowed to come together, even project works sitting at their places, definitely the system will come out with some solution. Now this is what happens even in IT industries. The bigger groups, they don't sit together. They are working at different corners in a globe, but they all work on the same project, and it is possible. But again, when it comes to mechanical, electrical, or electronics, or for that matter civil engineering projects, it may be a little difficult because they have to do the models. Now, having said all that, I believe in the days to come, post COVID, a term called as the blended learning that may come into forefront much more than anything else, wherein it's a mix of online classes as well as face-to-face communication. Maybe students are asked to come to the college, maybe 2 or 3 days a week. They are given some introductory topics. They're asked to go through the online lectures, videos, and all that at their own place, and then come back on the next week. So this is called as blended learning. That may happen in the days to come. Now, having said that about online, practical training and project work, you had asked me to talk about the scenario of engineering education in the present context and also in the days to come. We know that engineering is a 4-year degree program, and a student after studying the engineering for 4 years in the college, by the time he graduates, we cannot predict what will be the industry, how will be the situation at that point in time. But we definitely hope and wish that whatever situation that we are presently facing will not be there after 4 years. So those who would like to join engineering today, I am sure they need not have to worry. Things will be better, but things may be different. So in the days to come, all the traditional branch of engineering will remain, but the way in which the industry is changing, I believe education institutions also have to change their offerings. Likewise, you might have heard about Industry 4.0, which is being talked about in a big way in majority of the manufacturing industries, where in their regular manufacturing process line, they use lot of automation. In ICT technologies are being used, information and communication technology, the artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, cyber security, all these are being used by each and every branch of engineering, and that is also being utilized in the industry. So in the college also we need to train students irrespective of their branches on these topics as applicable to their branch of engineering. And I believe if we do that, there is a great future, because this is one professional course which within 4 years, many a times within 3 years and half, 6 months, students will get graduated, and there's enough scope. Only thing is, students must show it to the industry, prospective employers, that they can learn when things change. They are ready to learn. They are ready to adapt. If that happens, I believe there's a great potential, there's a great opportunity for engineering graduates. Yeah, over to you.
Okay, that's great information. So you mean to say that with the help of technology, there is no limitation. We can have, and going forward, there will be a blend of, it's a blended learning, like a mix of online and offline.
Yeah.
And there could be a lot of new stream focusing on this thing.
Yeah, definitely.
No, but Professor Shalini, I believe you are the counselor also for this at the NITE Mangalore. But this COVID pandemic have some psychological effect also on the kids, right? How do you see this effect on students?
All right. Now let's thank you very much, Mr. Sunoj, and greetings to all the viewers. Let's just accept that people are not the same. All of us are very different from each other, so reactions are going to be very different. Similarly, with the adolescents that we are talking about right now, their reactions are going to be definitely different. There have been unexpected happenings in our life suddenly, from, let's say, which has affected us from March, so to say. Even though the COVID-19 virus came in sometime in January for the first time, when a student carried it from Wuhan to India, we have, since then, we have kind of, kept quiet. We did not bother very much. It's only when the lockdown happened that we got alert and we wondered what's happening. It was a big shock. Now, I would like to take you through a little study that we did sometime in April, because I had to speak to a forum on stress management. So I conducted a study with the engineering students. And I think that the results are going to be more or less similar, because this is how it is. Even though we expect that people are going to be very fearful, people are going to be anxious, people are going to be stressed, people are going to be, terribly worried about the uncertainty before them, we were surprised that in spite of us conducting online classes for them, a lot of them took to it pretty comfortably, because we need to accept that the youngsters these days are very tech savvy. They are very adaptable. They are aware of what's happening globally, and they jump to adapt the changes, take on the changes. This is what we have observed. Yes, some people have had problems. To look at the figures that I have with me, 26% of them were exceptionally productive. They were happy doing online classes, catching up on academics. They were doing courses online. They were learning life skills. They were catching up on hobbies and interests. Some of them even went on to learn, new instruments that because they were interested musically. And some students who were living in the farming communities began to do gardening. They began to help their parents in agriculture. This was 26% of them. 41% of them were keeping abreast with academics. They were attending online classes. They were reading up on what they had studied earlier. They were taking on a few online courses, etc. Comfortable. They were doing a few odd jobs in the house, which they were asked to do. That's how it was. That makes about 67% of them who were very comfortable. Now, we also saw that 33% of our students were not very productive. They attended online classes, true. They did the basic household work, but spent a lot of time on television and on the social media. Plenty of time on that. So the screen time really, really went up. This is something that we observe about a lot of people. Now, it was only 1% of the students who had severe problems, who had excessive anxiety, who had a lot of anger, and they wondered when this is going to end. They felt very suffocated being with the family members. They felt that their freedom had been, impinged on, and they wanted out. Some of them were even entertaining suicidal thoughts. This is about 1%. I would say that it is probably true that it is, maybe 1 to 2% who have had serious reactions, who would have quarrels in the family, who would not like to share the same resources because everybody's in the house. The elders in the family, especially if there are, grandparents in the family, when the parents went away to work, when the children went to school, what they would do is they would have their series, their programs on television. Now, the child wanted to see the same thing. The parents had their own, programs, and there would be a little bit of a scuffle for resources. This is something that has happened. Now, we asked them another question at this point of time, but how do you experience the world around you? Apart from the anxieties that they experience, how did you adapt? How did you cope with the studies that you, online classes, etc.? This was the other question that we asked them. At that time, 17% of them were very calm. They were normal, very, very comfortable. 40% of them were very happy to find family time. They said, we never get to find time with our family members. Now we are eating home food. We are very comfortable. And they were also taking the necessary precautions. Some of them even went on to help the neighbors, help the community, joined hands in, helping other people who did not privileges. So that makes about 57% of them. 42% of them said that they were bored. They were experiencing fear about uncertainty, and they wanted to end the lockdown to end very, very soon. Okay. There were the 1% people I told you about. They not only experienced anxiety and fear and sadness, they also expressed the desire to seek help. Some of them had very pathological responses, like, there was this person who spoke about how he would like the country which initiated the COVID-19 to be destroyed, and all human population should disappear there, and there should only be jungle. This is what one of the kids said, which, immediately I took that child up to work with him. So this is the kind of reactions that they have spoken about. Now, the problem has not been there only for students. The teachers have also experienced a lot of difficulties. But there again, when I go around and I speak to the teachers, and I sent them the same questionnaire, most of them said that they are pretty comfortable because they were finding time to be with their little children, to be with their families, which has not been happening earlier. However, some of them were taking to online classes, something that they were not used to. you know, they were struggling a little bit, but they were coping. This is what happened. Now we asked them another question of how do you want the college to help you, the institution to help you. To this, almost all of them wanted class cancellation, you know, for as long as possible, for fear that students living in faraway places in the country, when they return, they may be bringing back the virus and the college might become a hotspot. This is something that they wanted to avoid. So there was that awareness that we would like to be safe. We would like everybody else to be safe. Some spoke about connectivity issues. I don't know whether the same thing happens in Kuwait, but then some students living in rural areas had connectivity issues, and they felt that, you know, using a small cell phones or running to a neighbor's house to use a computer, etc., was pretty difficult, especially because of the lockdown, and they were not supposed to step out at all. Many were not happy with the one-way communication because the teachers would mute them because of the mischief that some students created. And that was creating a bit of a problem that they couldn't immediately, you know, sort of raise their hand and ask questions. That created problems. But then they did accept it. Now, the students also wanted exams only after the, you know, everything settled down. And when we come back to college, we want to be in college for a couple of weeks, after which, you know, when we have kind of brushed up, we would like the exams to take place. So what I would like to conclude by this is that, yes, severe anxiety, severe feelings of loneliness or being confined, being handcuffed. Some kids use words like being handcuffed. This was a study that was done with about 500 plus students. So let's say 5-6 students spoke about being handcuffed, being put in a straitjacket, finding it very, very difficult. But most other students adapted pretty fine. So what we would tell them is, if anybody is experiencing reactions which are unusual to them, they should reach out and seek help. There are people out there, because I'm a member of an association for psychiatric social work professionals. We even offered online therapeutic help. 61 of us offered online therapeutic help, and almost all of us were from NIMHANS, Bangalore. And the calls that we were getting were from these people who were going through these extreme reactions. Some of them had gone to the extent of cutting themselves, you know, because they couldn't really deal with the anxiety that they were experiencing. They were not having the socialization that they desired with their friends. This probably happens to people who are extremely individualistic, who invest a lot in their friends rather than with their own family members. So I suppose they would require help. And those people who are feeling bored probably required to be assisted with creating a routine which is going to work for them, because a routine, a regular time to sleep, regular time to wake up, and to have a little bit of, you know, activity at different intervals, study included, even when online classes are not happening, is probably important. Have I answered your question, Mrs. Sinoj?
Yeah, that's correct, actually. Like, as you saw, maybe some few percentage of students require some kind of attention, but the majority are becoming productive. And as you said, like the lockdown is increasing the quality time with the family and the community. Absolutely. So definitely that also will increase the productivity, I believe.
Absolutely.
Now coming to our readers' question, we received a lot of questions about the engineering education as it is. Dr. Chiplangar, like earlier, the branches were very limited. The engineering branches were very limited. Students can choose either a mechanical or electrical or civil engineering. But now it looks like there are a lot of branches and a lot of streams to choose. And for the parents who studied in that time when there was only very few, it will become more confusing for them to choose what stream to choose. For the students also, it will be difficult. So how students can choose this right branch for a student? Any idea on that you want to share?
Yeah, that's a very right and relevant question. You know, in India, AICTE, All India Council for Technical Education, which is a statutory body which governs all the engineering colleges in the country, it lists about 280 different approved branches of engineering. 280 is very huge. But however, most of them are not being offered in many of the colleges. The common ones which are being offered from several institutions, they are civil engineering, mechanical engineering, electrical and electronics, electronics and communications, computer science and engineering, chemical engineering, architectural engineering, biotechnology engineering, aeronautical engineering, etc. These are most of the common branches which we see in many of the colleges. There are also some very recent inclusions to this list of BE programs, like BE in artificial intelligence and machine learning, BE in computer and communication engineering, BE in mechatronics, BE in robotics. These are all very recent additions. And also there are some branches like dairy engineering, footwear technology, fire safety engineering, biochemical engineering, aerospace engineering, cement and ceramic engineering, marine engineering, etc., which are offered only in very selected institutes, which are either very specific research level institute or which cater to a specific manpower requirement to the industries in and around. So this is the entire gamut of engineering branches which are available. Now, all engineering branches, as I said earlier, need very good knowledge of physics and mathematics. Some branches even may require a thorough knowledge of chemistry and or biology, because having biotechnology and biochemical engineering, they may require also little knowledge of biology. There is nothing like a good or a bad branch. We all know that every branch has its has its stake. Only thing is, whichever branch a student opts for, he must start loving that branch. This is point number one. Yeah. He must work hard, and in fact, this particular branch selection, there is always a confusion amongst the students, even in the parents. Even after joining a branch of engineering, there is something called as core courses and elective courses. So even there, students find it difficult which elective course I would like to opt for. So in mechanical engineering, now let me take an example. In mechanical engineering, there is something called as design specification or design stream. One more specialization is say computational fluid dynamics. It is called as CFD. But the kind of knowledge or the background that is required to take up any one of these specialization is different. If one wants to get into design aspects of it, he must be good in engineering, graphics, mathematics, and physics. If one wants to get into computational fluid dynamics, he must be good in coding. He must be, good in fluid dynamics, and so on. So this particular choice is not only at the entry level. Even after entering into the engineering, he has to do lots of choices. But finally, it all depends on how well he copes up. And as I said, he must start loving the things what he has opted for. Also, many students will have a doubt about what is the difference between computer science and engineering and information science and engineering, because we have been coming across this particular questions even by the students and the parents. To tell you, computer science and engineering is a course wherein normally there will be 60% weightage given to software subjects and 40% to hardware subject under the core branch and under the core subjects. This is apart from physics, chemistry, mathematics. There is something called as core engineering subject. 60% goes to the software, 40% goes to the hardware subjects. When it comes to information science and engineering, it is mostly software subjects that they study to provide solutions for various different domains of engineering. It could be for banking domain, it could be for insurance domain, it could be for healthcare sector. So information science students will develop a software. Similar questions normally arises even when they look at the branches like aeronautical and aerospace. Aeronautical engineering is normally the one which gives inputs on how to design, how to maintain the aircrafts. Whereas when it comes to aerospace, it is something to do with rocket science, how to build spacecrafts. It is outer space. So the details and related aspects about that will be taught. So there is a subtle difference between every branch, but one has to make a thorough study based on his areas of interest or his inclination, and he must select a branch and then do well there. And normally the demand for a engineering graduate from a specific branch keeps changing as per the industry requirements. This year, an industry may say that I am looking for a graduate who is good in maybe data risk management system or artificial intelligence. Depending on the industry requirement, their requirements also keep changing. So what they finally look at in the engineering graduates is how well he can learn new things. What is his academic background in the subjects that he has studied, and what is his overall attitude and involvement in other co-curricular activities. So this is what basically industries look at when they select. And as I already mentioned earlier, a small working knowledge of artificial intelligence, machine learning, not deep is not required, but an overview of all this may be necessary, going forward. So I should say that all these facts like artificial and machine learning, etc., which are basically talked about, they are used in mechanical engineering, they are used in civil engineering. Lots of sensors are being used these days in many construction activities, structures, and so on. So they must know how to read the data from sensors, actuate something, and so on. And going forward, I believe learning something, whatever comes up new in their field, is very much essential. Otherwise, they'll be left behind. So that is why a lot of emphasis is given on certification examinations, where they have to learn new topics and keep themselves ready to take up new challenges in industry is very much essential. So in a nutshell, I would like to say that every branch is good. Only thing is they need to go through what branch basically talks about, what every branch talks about, do some study before choosing. But once they get into any branch of engineering, as I said, they must start loving it, put in hard work, they will succeed. Yeah, over to you.
Okay, so it's basically it's like one should understand what exactly that branch is, and after all, it's again depends on his attitude and aptitude.
True.
And he should love that subject. So when it comes to, when you talk about the attitude and aptitude, I think Professor Shalini could share something more on how to become successful in that stream.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Singh. I think that Dr. Niranjan has already spoken about the right kind of aptitude. I would only expand it a little bit. If you love the subject that you have chosen, you would be able to spend any amount of time on it. You would seek out programs which are related to that and attend those programs. You would do online courses. You would do everything possible that would widen your horizons, that would help you go deep into the subject, and then you can definitely not fail. You will be successful. I'll give you an example of a student that we had when he came into the first year. We have a program for freshers, which is called a day-long, which is an orientation program, a day-long orientation in small groups, and students are provided an opportunity to come up and speak. And this particular student who had just come in spoke about how he wants to be a civil engineer and how he had already chalked out a path for himself to do higher studies in Massachusetts Institute of Technology in structural engineering, because he had his cousin working there, cousin studying there, and he wanted to, take the same path. Now this child was completely enthusiastic. Normally, in the first year, most of the students don't go for internships. The regulatory bodies really do not ask us to encourage them to go for internship. But this child took on the internship. He went and did an internship for 2 months during his vacations to a civil engineering firm, learned and came back. And he became a volunteer with us for the second year's orientation program, when seniors can become volunteers. And at that time, we give them a topic to speak for 1 minute. He spoke on internships to the first years. He said how he has done it, and then how he's feeling very empowered by doing this internship, etc. Now, this is exactly what a student requires to do if he's interested in a subject. Going deeply into it and loving it, and leaving no stone unturned to be successful. All that he was doing is to be able to write a statement of purpose when he applies for Massachusetts Institute of Technology to be eligible. And there was no doubt whatsoever that he loved the program thoroughly, and he was doing very well. Now, this is about your aptitude for it, your love for it, your passion for it, which shows in several ways. He was the apple of the teacher's eye. Many of the teachers loved him for this reason. They would definitely give him rave testimonials if he were to apply for a course abroad. This was how it was. Now, we would also say that a person who is going to be a successful engineer requires to have a lot of skills which are apart from his academic skills. Again, Dr. Niranjan has spoken about it a little bit. There are personal skills which show you as somebody who is enthusiastic, somebody who is proactive, who looks ahead and plans in advance to achieve it, somebody who's got very specific goals and has chalked out a way of getting there, who's working, who's very self-aware, and he is able to minimize the deficiencies that he has in his personality and maximize his abilities. Somebody who seeks help from wherever it may be available, without any shyness, without any embarrassment, to say that I don't know, I want to learn more, or I want to know about it. Somebody who becomes a part of activities in the college which give him the spirit of teamwork, somebody who participates in sports kind of activities, somebody who reads widely, somebody who discusses things with the parents, with the friends, with the teachers, even though he may not know as much as them, but then in the process of learning, somebody who's concerned about the environment, somebody who's contribute towards the good of the environment, somebody who's able to think ahead and say what can cause damage and what can really make a beautiful world, and how I can apply my engineering skills to make a better world. Somebody who's very smart with problem solving skills, somebody who has creativity, who can think out of the box, find a solution which is not been presented by anybody earlier in order to come out with a solution to a problem in a very attractive manner, which makes you, which delights you, and somebody who is open, somebody, again, Dr. Niranjan spoke about it, a lifelong learner who doesn't stop learning, because who keeps on upgrading his skills, who learns what is the need of the hour, and without you telling him to do it, does it, So these are qualities not just of a successful engineer, of a successful person. So you require to have that, those personal skills. You need to have interpersonal skills, which are, you would be able to communicate well, not just speaking, listening effectively, clarifying when you do not know, able to reflect on what is told to you, and be able to come out with your own views by reading between the lines. You know, like when we look at the newspapers these days, you can't really believe that everything is the truth. But somebody who's able to apply his own mind to it, who looks through history and says, this is what's happened earlier. So that's the kind of person we are looking for. Somebody who's able to read well, somebody who's able to write well, somebody who's able to use the internet wisely, not get lost in the distractions that can be there, which are plenty. So it's like somebody, you know, when you have a role, when you're playing the role of a student, you are ensuring that you don't lose focus of the main theme. You don't get lost in the weeds. The weeds are growing very pretty and you are not getting lost in the weeds. You're focusing on the main crop that you have planted and you pull out the weeds then and there when things happen. This is the kind of person that we would be looking at. Somebody who's able to work with other people in harmony, respecting that there are differences, but when we are working together, we are looking at the common goal and we will work towards that and not bother about the differences that we have, because when we are working on a project, when we are working on an activity, we are working for the success of that project. That's the kind of person that we will be looking at. These are skills, soft skills, which are, you know, there are so many that we could speak for hours or conduct workshops for hours on it.
Yes, yes.
So I think we would have restrictions of time. I'll stop here. Thank you.
Yes, yes. So I think when it comes to the personal skills, the non-academic activities in colleges are plays important roles. Right?
Absolutely. Non-academic activities are what give them an opportunity to express themselves, their talent, their many abilities, because everybody is not equally endowed with talent. You know, there may be somebody who loves to write poetry. There may be somebody who loves to dance. There may be somebody who's excited about sports and very passionate about sports. Somebody who loves kinesthetic intelligence, loves dancing. Somebody who loves cooking. There is some, you know, there are myriad talents that the students possess. And if somebody can become a part of those activities, both co-curricular, extracurricular activities, he would learn how to work with other people. He would know that when there is a difficulty that is posed, when there are limitations posed, how to work within those limitations. And by being successful there, show to the management, show to the teachers that we would be able to have done this much. So now, you know, the teachers or the principal would not be able to say no to them when they have gone more than 50% ahead, saying that I've done this. And they would be able to establish wonderful relations with each other in you know, as a team. And they also make lifelong friendships, because if you and I and Dr. Niranjan, we talk about our, you know, when we have alumni meets, we go back to the time when we were students and how wonderful it is. So you make lifelong relationships, you make mistakes, but you learn from those mistakes that you make, because mistakes have to happen. If mistakes don't happen, growth doesn't really happen. So those sort of things. Non-academic activities are absolutely important for you to realize yourself. I would say it is like, you know, you have a thali meal, you have a regular meal, you have your rice or your chapatis or your parathas, and you have your sabjis, your, you know, different dishes. And then you also have your favorite dessert at the end of it. So when you look at the dessert, you would be able to do very well. I have had students earlier in college who were very passionate about dancing, so passionate that they aren't able to focus on their regular academics at all because they are thinking of that. Seeing this, the parents have stopped them from doing the, you know, dancing that they were passionate about or music that they were passionate about. The child is not able to perform well in academics at all because the, you know, something that makes him feel excited has been taken away from him. There are times when parents come and tell us, no, don't include him in the sport because his academics is suffering. And some teachers also hold that view that he should study, he should not do this. But any enlightened parent would know that when the child expresses himself in activities which are of very close to his heart, he would be able to bring about changes in his academic performance also. So it really helps him. I have several examples of this. If at all there is time, I would be able to tell you sometime later.
Okay, that's a lot of information, and it clearly says the importance of students in non-academic activities in college. Dr. Niranjan, you already mentioned detailed about the various branches and how to choose the correct branch for students. But it is also important how to choose the right institute for studies. So what are the things the students need or the parents need to consider when he is selecting the right institute for his education?
Yeah, that's very important. So in India, there are about 4,800 plus engineering institute offering undergraduate engineering program. There are few which offer only postgraduate programs. So I have left that. It's about 4,800 plus offering only undergraduate engineering programs. So these includes 18 to 20 IITs. There are about 30 plus NITs. The institutes which come under deemed to be universities, institute which come under affiliated scheme. Some are autonomous, some are non-autonomous. Like we are an autonomous institution under Visvesvaraya Technological University, Belagavi, wherein we frame our syllabi, we conduct the examination, we evaluate the students, but finally the degree is awarded by the university. So like this, there are varieties of institutes, engineering institutes, and selecting a right college or a right institute is very important, since overall facilities and opportunities provided in the college for better learning will decide the future of the student. So one has to look at all this. Not only that, even the teachers who are teaching in that particular institute, their quality, for how long they have been associated with that institute, that also matters a lot, because just to have a good number of faculty, I can appoint someone, and then within another 6 months if they leave, institute is not going to gain, and even students in turn will not going to gain anything. So the quality of the teachers, their association with that particular institute, and also the research facilities in the college, support for entrepreneurship activities, industry engagements, sports facilities, hostels facilities, all these put together will be looked into by the students while deciding a college for the admissions. There are also, these days rankings, they are being given by various agencies. So I just would like to talk about three. One is what is given by UGC, University Grants Commission. They have National Assessment and Accreditation Council, NAC they call. So they grade the institutions every year based on various parameters. So one has to look at what is the NAC rating of an institute. Second one, this is institution level ranking. There is also something called as National Board of Accreditation giving ranks. So this is from AICTE. They give, again, evaluate the programs. They don't evaluate the institution as a whole, but they evaluate different branches of engineering or programs, and then they give rankings to that. Very recently, we have the MHRD coming out with what is called NIRF, National Institutes Ranking Framework. So various parameters which are used to basically evaluate the colleges include the teaching learning, research, placements, infrastructure, and other student support systems. So it is quite possible, again, I would like to add that some of the branches may be very good in a college, but may not be all. So when a student selects a branch, he also has to look at the college in which he is going to study that particular branch. So these two go hand in hand. So selection of a branch and then selection of a college. And finally, these days, there are the college websites. The websites, they give entire information about the college and the facilities and the courses offered and the rankings that the institution has obtained. But one point is, it is always better to get the inside story from the alumni of that institute, if possible, to know what people talk about that particular institute. I think these are various mechanisms in which one can select a college and then continuous education. Yeah, over to Mr. Sunuj.
Okay. So you talk about this accreditation and all these things.
Yeah.
How students can find out this? Is there any way where the students can find out this accreditation, like NBA accreditation or any kind of things?
Yes. In fact, all institutions for that matter, they put in their institute website what is their NBA status, that is National Board of Accreditation status, what is their NAAC status. That is one part of it, they claiming it. But it always can be cross-verified with the actual agencies which give that ranking. For NAAC, there is a website, NAAC website, there is a NBA website, there is a NIRF website. So aspirants can go through those websites and then see whether really what college claims is true or not.
Okay. Okay, Professor Shalini, what about the placement in all these various colleges? Just now, Dr. Niranjan told about the how to choose the right institute. But as you are also handling this placement, what is the current status of campus recruitment?
Yeah. As of now, in this year, 2019-2020, we have not found any problems because all the students who have been recruited, we have had 622 offers that have been made, and all of them, with the exception of one small company, have honored their offers. Only thing is that onboarding, joining the company may be delayed slightly, is what they have said. And all of them have asked the students to be on internship, and they have invited them for internships. We also see that companies are offering internships merrily. They are offering so many opportunities with stipend for students to do internship, which means that projects are coming their way, because most of the companies are working online and the employees are working online. They are continuing to get the projects. Around the world, this is happening. So I don't think that at this point of time, there is no reason to worry. Like our principal spoke a little earlier, the nature of jobs may change, but then I don't think that there would be any fear of not having employment for engineering education. And those people who are very good in their subjects, who are, striving hard to be their best, would not have any problems. We will have to keep on upskilling ourselves, learning new skills, upgrading our knowledge. To may not be possible to say, I'm interested in just this, I'm going to do just this and nothing else. You need to have diverse skills. You need to have multiple skills. A mechanical engineer or a civil engineer or an electrical engineer cannot say that I will not learn coding. He may have to do it. Because most of the companies who are coming for recruitment of the 2021 batch, they are already conducting code vitas, hackathons. They are conducting a whole lot of programs to invite students to participate in it. And those students who do really well in it would be taken up for internships. There were some companies like MScripts, etc., who picked up our students of the pre-final year. And those pre-final year students will be given a project to do. They have done well so far. So they'll be given a project, finally a project to do with the organization. So I do not see a dismal future, but the nature of jobs may be slightly different. And students will have to have an open mind to say that I'm going to embrace the change. If I cannot really stop the waves, I'm going to learn to surf to deal with the challenge. So that kind of an open-mindedness is going to really help our students to go ahead. Flexibility, adaptability would be the answers, apart from excelling in what you do. I would also like to remind, because I have not spoken about this earlier, every student requires to have fairly decent grades at the 10th level, at the 12th standard level. Something that's over 70% marks would be wonderful if he has he would have the passport to get into a company when he does equally well in the engineering course. It is not that he has to have a CGPA of 9 or he needs to score 95% or whatever. No. As long as he's doing well, as long as he has the understanding of the fundamentals of the course, he would be able to do well there. He should be able to apply what he has learned to the problems that they give them. Along with that, he would require to have the personal skills, the interpersonal skills, the teamwork skills that are needed, and the proactive behavior that is needed in order to succeed. So in our college, we have this system where we say that a person who's going to be eminently employable is someone who's happy, who's healthy, who's articulate, who's enthusiastic, socially conscious, ecologically conscious, ethically upright, a team player who's a universal citizen, along with his, basic knowledge of his fundamentals. A student cannot say that I have forgotten what I have studied in my third semester or fourth semester. He has to give importance to everything that he has studied. Now, I understand that there are students who have not really done very well in their internal assessment marks, who are feeling bad that internals will be considered for their final, evaluation. So we will have to take our role very seriously and do well each day, each moment in order to be successful, Mr. Sunoj. That's the message that I would like to communicate.
Okay, that's a lot of information. I'm sure all the parents must have benefited from this one. And now it's already 6:30 and we have to wind up this session now. But finally, Professor Shalini, as you know, it's look like this COVID pandemic is going to be here for some more time.
That's right.
Okay. In fact, actually, we all want to end this soon. But now, in this trying time, you have any advice to the parents and the students on how to stay calm and productive?
Yeah, I think that I can even teach them a little exercise to do right away. We require to stay calm. We require to follow the norms that have been prescribed to us, the SMS, sanitize, mask, and social distance. We need to be kind to other people by following this, because when you do it, you are helping not only yourself, you're helping other people also. Apart from that, it would definitely help to have a little time in your routine, let's say 30 minutes in the morning and 30 minutes in the evening for physical exercise to keep yourself fit. Because we have this, we can generate biochemicals in our own body by doing physical exercise. Endorphins are released in the brain, which are feel-good chemicals, which help you stay energetic, active, enthusiastic. That's one thing. Now, there are certain exercises which require to be done in order to improve your lymphatic system, to ensure that your lymphatic system produces the hormones which are really needed for you to function to the best possible extent. And there are Art of Living, and several of these people have enough of videos which will tell you how to do it. Yoga, doing Surya Namaskar, it's a whole body exercise which would really help. Pranayams, which help you with breathing. There is one particular exercise called Basrika, where you breathe in and lift your hand up, and then you bring it down with great force, which is supposed to be excellent for your respiratory system. So if they just look up and learn these things, we can, if you want, we can have another session on that some other day, because we require to stay healthy, we require to stay active, we require to relate to people, cut down on time which we watch, where we watch Corona this, Corona that, utilize our time productively, relate to people. Tough times happen, but then tough people stay on and they succeed. So let's all work towards that, because that's the only thing that's going to really help us.
Okay. Yeah, really, that's a really very good lot of information. I'm sure our readers must have benefited a lot from these sessions. And now we have to wind up this one now. And I really thank Dr. Chiplangar and Professor Shalini Sharma for your valuable time to talk to our readers. I'm very thank you.
Thank you
Thank
very
you
much.
very much. Thanks
very
for the
much
opportunity.
for this
And I
opportunity.
wish all the viewers happy and a safe stay wherever they are. Yeah.
We wish them success.
Okay,
in
and
life.
thank you very much. And thanks to all our audience for your attendance. And as you all know, IIK will be coming up with a new session on similar subjects very soon. So keep watching our website indiansynchrony.com for further announcements. Till then, thank you. Thank you.